Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for being with the Voice of America.
Thank you for having me, sir.
The Obama administration recommended a few months ago that the Iraqi government should be more inclusive to avoid the kind of division that allowed Daesh to penetrate into Iraq. Was that taken care of?
We have already focused on the areas of conciliation. We focused on making sure that the politics of Iraq support our fight against Daesh, ISIS, and that on the ground we get collaboration and support, and sometimes spearheading by the various Iraqi security forces, including the tribal part of Iraq who are within that localities.
Last week, the coalition meeting in Rome praised the Iraqi offensive that managed to take parts of Ramadi and some other cities. In your opinion, what's else needed to help the Iraqi forces complete the job?
Well, the level of collaboration we have had with the coalition forces led by the United States has been very useful for us. We certainly need further support in relation to ammunition, intelligence sharing, which we're working on, sometime in relation to making sure that the regional politics supports the offensive inside Iraq, and also to make sure that the internal politics in Iraq is reflective of the urgency we need in this fight. As we speak now, we have already liberated all of the areas of Ramadi, and further focus will be then in future on the big city of Mosul in the north.
The United States is still insisting not to send ground troops to Iraq and just instead sending advisors and some special forces from the United States. Is that enough to uproot Daesh from Iraq?
We have not asked for the United States for troops, and there was a clear agreement from both capitals that the fight should be led by Iraqis. We need support in relation to ammunition, training, intelligence sharing, and so on, but we don't need boots on the ground or combat forces. This is an Iraqi fight, and to that effect we have a full agreement with the administration. In fact, even when other countries have offered us, we have said no, because this has to be led by Iraqis.
According to the Pentagon, there are almost 3,600 U.S. troops in Iraq, while some other reports are talking about 6,000, which is more correct.
The numbers are nearer to about 4,000, but what we have, sometimes the varieties in the numbers are primarily because there is a change in the shifts or changing in tours. So people come in to hand over to the others and so on. But what we have is roughly around about 4,000 US advisors. We have coalition partners from others as well. So to that effect, Iraq have said to the other countries, please come over, but we need to agree on your role, specifically in training, and also you need to do it in full collaboration with the Iraqi government.
So far, is Iraq satisfied with the kind of help it's getting from the coalition?
Well, as you know, Daesh we don't have what you might call a pure conventional war, nor it's an asymmetrical, it's a mix. So to that effect, we need to have a close collaboration. We need other countries to have a clear sense of urgency, as we do have. So when you say that we're satisfied, I think the only satisfaction we will get is when we get rid of ISIS once and for all. We still need further support. We have other challenges which may be hindering our military challenge, which is to do with the economical challenge. We also have to make sure that the regional politics is supported as well.
Who will assist the Iraqis on the ground to get rid of Daesh?
We currently, the central government is leading it with collaborations from PMUs, with collaborations from local tribes, with collaborations of the Peshmerga forces, and also those political parties who have focus on working with the central government in making sure that the politics is not party to this discussion. So we need to get our politics, our economy to support our military, and certainly we need international cooperation to support our military on the ground.
When you are talking about tribes, what kind of tribes are participating in the fight? Sunni, Shiite, or mix?
No, it's all, we have, it's also Christians part of the PMUs. We also have Yazidis and so on. I think the issue now is bigger and the challenge is wider than just thinking about the Sunni tribes or others. However, we are not saying everybody should be involved in every part of the fighting. No, it need to be sort of taking into account the localities, taking into account the politics involved in it, and making sure that the politics support the military campaigns, but at the same time, the military campaign supports the politics. So in Anbar, if we need to get support of local tribes, which we have had, we do that. In Tikrit, we needed the Jubur tribes to work with us, we did that. In Nainawa, it's more cosmopolitan. It will be harder, but it's doable.
Saudi Arabia is offering to send troops to fight Daesh. Would Iraq be open to invite Saudi troops, United Arab Emirates or Egyptian or Jordanian?
We have said no to the United States troops. We have said no to the Iranian troops, who both have been working with us closely in this fight. Saudi Arabia and other countries are more than welcome to advise us and tell us what they can offer. We have not had these formal requests from them, so until we do that, we cannot take into consideration. But from our side, as a basis, we have said we prefer not to have regional troops on the ground. We would like to have international advisors, because we think that our regional neighbors will not come in just without a baggage of a type. We need to make sure that the support they provide is to be effective and expedite the process on the ground. Bringing them in might make it more complicated, and we need the Iraqis to lead this fight. So help us with the politics, help us with economical support, but as far as troops on the ground, we would rather be led by Iraqis for Iraqis.
What kind of help Iraq is getting from Iran in the fighting against Daesh?
We have advisors, not as much as, not anywhere near where the coalition advisors are there. We also have had support from them in relation to our military campaign to make sure that, for example, if we need certain intelligence sharing and so on, we need that. Iran felt the urgency because of the border situations. They were only 40 kilometers away from it. And Iran and other countries need to focus on this common fight. Iraqis know that they are the battlefield, or they are the front for this fight. We and Syria are. We need to make sure that Iraq is the positive element which helps to reduce the tension, helps to define some support even in the situation in Syria, once we eradicate ISIS from Iraq.
Would you consider some sort of a Russian role in fighting Daesh?
There is an international role which Russia is playing in Syria. We're not playing part of that. What we are saying is, in relation to Iraq, we don't need troops. There might be certain lower level intelligence sharing. We will do that with full transparency. We're not hiding anything away from that. But I would say I think the current focus is on Syria. That's a different issue.
Iraq is fighting Daesh, but also fighting a widespread corruption. What Iraq is doing to fight this?
The fight against corruption is a deep-rooted issue. We inherited a culture of corruption pre-2003. The politics and management issues of post-2003 may not help in resolving the corruption issue. United States' role when it got involved in Iraq and how it was the country restructured and so on may not have helped. So these are legacy issues, and there are immediate issues for us. It's certainly hindering our economical development and certainly hindering our security, sort of stability of our security. The government is working on a number of fronts, whether it's in relation to campaign against corruption, making sure that certain key projects are cleansed from the corruption and so on. This is not an easy fight. It will not be an overnight fight. It has to be a sustainable, tenacious operation. But you have to bear in mind, we are in the midst of a war, which means that we have to focus on few issues. We have major economical challenges because of oil prices over the last 18 months. which means we need to get our efficiency in how we go about it. So to that effect, Iraq has a tremendous amount of challenges ahead. We need tremendous amount of support.
Mr. Ambassador, after years of U.S. training and equipping the Iraqi army, how would you explain the lack of resolve that allowed Daesh to penetrate into Mosul with no resistance?
Well, there were certain levels of local support for it. There were certain level of mismanagement in relation to the military structure. There were certainly mismanagement of the politics of the country. But that effect is everybody has to be party to that problem. It's not just one person. The reason I'm saying that is that the cabinets are reflective of the whole cosmopolitan nature of Iraq. It's a coalition cabinet. We don't have any opposition parties in Iraq. So this method of operating may need to be revisited. Certain elements of the practices we have done may need to be revisited. We can only do that once we get rid of ISIS. We can only do that when we all agree that we may have been party to the problem. Now we need to be party to the solution. Blame will not work, certainly.
On the other hand, the Kurdish Peshmerga showed a great performance fighting Daesh. Would that encourage the Iraqi Kurds to push for an independent Kurdish state?
Well, let's put the facts on the ground here. Let's be clear about it. Whenever who fought in the Anbar against the ISIS while the army couldn't provide support directly to them for months and months, or Amerli, where it was for 11 weeks strangled by ISIS, but they weren't able we were able to liberate Amerli. These are fightings away from the Kurdish area by brave tribal and support of the central government. I don't think anybody should say I'm the bravest and everybody else are not. Certainly the Kurdish Peshmerga fighters have proven that, but let's not miss the others as well. We need to make sure that the fight against ISIS unites us in the focus of our politics and our development. If we go about talking about independence, I don't think that will immediately help this current campaign, and certainly will hinder the relationship in the day after.
But Turkey is very concerned about the rise of the Kurdish.
Turkey has a lot to do. Turkey itself, I mean, in Iraq we have a serious concern as to what of the role Turkey has done before in Syria and in allowing them. The jihadists, Salafists are coming primarily from that part. Turkey has a lot to do. Once they reflect seriousness on addressing it, we will certainly be happy to have a serious discussion with them about that. Until then, unfortunately, I don't think they are in a position to talk about their role in the fight against ISIS. They need to prove that the fight is doing it is supportive of stability in us, in Syria and elsewhere. At this moment, we are not seeing too many signs of positiveness from the Turkish, including the presence in Iraq without the authority of central government.
Help us understand the weird, I would say, alliance between the former secular officers of Saddam Hussein and terrorists from Al-Qaeda to form this terrorist entity called Daesh.
Pre-2003, when it was clear that the United States will be involved in the invasion of Iraq, it was clear also that Saddam Hussein will have utilized his skills in the asymmetrical war and also making sure that he has the right alliance. At that time, there was an alliance started where the international jihadists from Al-Qaeda, Afghanistan and others were allowed to come to Iraq. At that time, the Ba'ath Party best utilized their capabilities, awareness of the infrastructure, awareness of the social mapping of Iraq, and certainly with the funds they had. So what we saw thereafter in the campaign against Iraq and the terrorism of Al-Qaeda in Iraq and all of them were clear alliance between the Ba'athists and the Al-Qaeda. What we see now in ISIS is a mutation of that, where the Ba'athists more or less developed into Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda more or less developed into this ISIS situation. So it's a marriage of convenience to a certain level. There is the ideological marriage as well, but also the key focus they have is the destruction of the post-democratic process of 2003.
The most important military challenge for Iraq would be liberating Mosul, where fighters of Daesh are very well mixed with the local community. How would any campaign against Daesh in Mosul would be successful without sacrificing the lives of innocent people?
Certainly the government have been trying what we did in Anbar and before that in Salahuddin and before that in Diyala. We have been trying to reduce the collateral damage. They are all Iraqi citizens. We have responsibility for their protection. We have the responsibility for protection of people of Mosul and Nainawa province. So that's one thing. We need to be careful. How do we go about it? The support we have had from the United States and others, we have been very clear, basic assumption of reduction of collateral damage in as much as we can. We also have we talked about the asymmetrical war of ISIS, of Daesh, which means that they are using human shield in their presence in towns and cities. That's danger for us. We also have to bear in mind the destruction to infrastructure, because that's another problem we have. The government does not have a lot of fund to go about redeveloping these, so we need to be very efficient how to go about it. So these are all elements. Then we have we have to get the buy-in of local tribes, whether it's Junabi or Jubur or Shimmar or other tribes within that province. To do that, we need to make sure that they play part in the planning, execution, and stabilization thereafter. What we have done in Anbar and before that in Salahuddin, we handed over management to the local provinces. The Prime Minister passed a decree straight after the liberation of Anbar to hand it over for them. Ramadi, to hand it over to the Anbar province. We need to learn from these issues. Certainly some mistakes may have been made, but we need to learn from that as well, with close cooperation of the coalition, because they provide the tools, some of the air supremacy and so on. So to that effect, we need a lot of homework to be doing to make sure that we minimize the damage to infrastructure and reduce collateral casualties. For us, any citizen being killed is one too many. So we should have zero tolerance for that. But at the same time, we know the nature of the enemy and the viciousness of their destruction.
Do you expect then some sort of American boots on the ground to help the Iraqi forces?
I don't think there is a need for it. Fundamentally, we do not want foreign troops. Foreign might be non-Iraqi troops on the ground. We fundamentally don't want that. We think the cost associated with it politically would be higher and thereafter. We certainly need support to make sure that our military establishment develop. We cannot just depend on the PMUs or local tribes, or even CT forces, our counterterrorism forces. We need to bring the full army with their all capabilities developed into that. So the key question we have at this moment is the pace of training for the army. However fast they are, the better for us.
Eventually, Daesh will be defeated in Iraq. Is the government planning for the day after to prevent Iraq from being a ground battle for sectarian strife, or to be partitioned into three different
That
portions?
formula for three parts or others has been there as a fiction for a long time. We are saying that the country can have sustainable development in politics, security, and others if we get our politics right. We have already learned and did initial practices and initial work on the ground after liberation of Ramadi, before that in Salahuddin, and before that in Diyala. We're already doing that, so we don't wait for the day after Mosul. But we have to make sure that the politics support the development on the ground, that the development on the ground is sustainable, and to do that we hand over to local police. We need to have and there's a strong campaign going on in training led by the Italians and others, and providing local police to have a say in controlling the cities and prevailing law and order. We certainly need that. We also know that the division of the country will depend on the pace of social harmony and political harmony. That has not been easy. We need to work more aggressive at that. But this is a question for the political parties. It's not just for the central government.
How about defeating the ideology after the fighters are removed? You have a problem of ideology that can last for decades.
True, nobody is disputing that, but that's a generic problem of the globe. It's certainly a fundamental problem of the region. We have had sectarianism as a theme being promoted in the region. Iraq has been the casualty of it. It's one of the most cosmopolitan countries, specifically even in the region. It's one of the oldest, and therefore by that nature, and specifically after 2003, where the state collapsed and we are redeveloping a new state. And also with the US presence in Iraq, which sometimes was not the best managed way of going about the transformation of the country. So with all that legacy, with democracy as a key theme in a region which is not democratic, with sectarianism being promoted already, we need to make sure that the regional players, Turkey, neighbors, Iran, the Arab countries, Gulf countries, support the stability of Iraq and Syria. Even if Iraq is fixed with all the challenges and so on, without addressing the situation next door in Syria, unfortunately, we will have our back door open all the time for those problems. So we have to control the borders. We have to make sure that the politics next door supports the stability. And this is a challenge to the region and to the globe, not just to Iraq.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for being with the Voice of America.
Thank you for having me.